So having said that, ma'am, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank the three ladies and the gentleman right in front of me, no, the president of the PSE, the chairperson of the SEC, the BIR commissioner, and the COA acting chair. Because I think today, despite Boyscout ang ating pong pinag-uusapan, you're sending a strong message, no, to the corporate world, sa lahat ng maging non-stock, non-profit, maging ordinary corporations, maging GOCCs, diba? That you'll be on top of the situation. And I just have a few questions. On top of the situation, meaning demanding better and better governance, corporate governance, no, and compliance with the law, no. Of course, the Commissioner Kim is on television more than the three of you. Maybe it's the nature of her work, no, and maybe mas maraming nagpapalusot sa kanya kaso sa inyo. But today will be a peculiar case. And let me proceed from there. But Ma'am Kim, I'll go to you. I'll just finish one or two questions sa PSE at saka sa SEC, no. Ma'am, sa SEC po, ma'am, the corporations are required to file a financial statement. Tama po?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And this form, no, with the cover sheet is provided by the Commission.
Yes, the cover sheet, yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, the purpose of this is because they will have investors, they will be dealing with other companies, they have a separate juridical personality, ibig sabihin parang tao, although hindi sila tao, meron silang juridical entity nga, di ba, na para silang artificial na tao na will be dealing, no? So, you require all of this for transparency, to prevent fraud, and to give yung kausap nila enough information. So, kung may magbebenta sa akin ng kotse at duda ako, ano ba tong korporasyon na to? Fly-by-night ba to? Peke ba yung ginagawang kotse nito? Pwede ako pumunta sa SEC at pwede kong tignan ang kanilang mga financial sheets, etc. No?
Yes, Mr. Senator. In fact, they don't have to come to the SEC. They can just buy a prepaid card and access our iView through their computers at home.
Okay. So you made it easier for people to check, no? And
so we have to enhance the system because we acquired that way back in 2005, and due to the number of corporations we have, the server isn't capable anymore.
And President Sicat, I guess the same thing, no? Especially when it's publicly listed, lalo na because the shares are openly sold to anyone in the public who's qualified to buy. So aside from the SEC filings, you also require several other submissions, no? Including, for example, disclosures. No?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Senator. That's absolutely correct. Essentially, as part of our mandate in terms of ensuring that the public investors get to know what's happening with corporations, we have a whole list of disclosure requirements. Some of them are basic reports, from your annual report to your quarterly statements, including requirements that which are very much linked to both good corporate governance and up-to-date information. And this will include various things like disclosing important, what we call material information, for example, decided by a board of directors within 10 minutes. And all of this information, just to let the committee know, is not only available or has not only been available on our website previously. We also developed a new app and a new website. It's called PSE Edge, so people can actually subscribe directly so that any corporation who's listed, they submit all of this through this particular facility, and the public can actually see real time what they are actually submitting to the PSE.
I'm a witness to that because I have that on my phone. But in a nutshell, ma'am and sir, no, basically on the positive side, these are all done para mapadali ang business, di ba? Because more business, more jobs, more taxes, and it's basically for our economy on the positive side. On the negative side, para walang lokohan, para walang fraud, no? Meaning the more transparent, the more information. For example, sa PSE, you can prevent insider trading, you can prevent na di ba sa US parating meron dyan yung parang mga pharma, di ba, na hindi nila i-disclose na yung isa nilang drug na dinidevelop ay defective pala. So invest pa rin pa ng invest yung iba, yung pala malulugi na kumpanya, no? So things like this, no? So but basically it's to promote business and promote people investing, no, in corporations on the positive side, and on the negative side to prevent fraud, no? In a nutshell po, ganun ang purpose nitong lahat. No?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's also very correct. I think in addition, from the PSE side, we also have something called the Capital Markets Integrity Corporation. It's actually funded by the PSE, but it's an independent corporation with independent directors. Their main job is, and we've given them, let's call it high technology and software to basically figure out, perhaps maybe not on a preventive basis, but as close to real time as possible, that they can detect, maybe have yellow flags or orange flags or red flags in terms of particular transactions that may or may not be, let's call it, not following the appropriate corporate governance. So these are tools, Mr. Chairman.
So baliktad kayo ng gobyerno. Sa gobyerno, ayaw ng COA. Kayo gusto nyo ng COA. So you invented your own audit system to make sure, di ba, that na there are no red flags or walang fraud, no? Because if that happens, sira yung buong, no, if massive fraud happens to the PSE, sira yung buong capital market at saka yung stock exchange natin, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So clearly we're trying to promote enhanced credibility and, of course, confidence in the market.
Yes.
Thank you.
Not to say, Ma'am Heidi, na walang complaints, di ba? I mean, there are legitimate complaints. We're just saying that it's a difficult job. Ma'am and sir, the reason I asked that is because in this hearing alone, no, when Mr. Ongpin and when Secretary Ongpin and Mr. Oreta was here, when there's conflicting statements, we referred to their financial statements. And either sagot nila, hindi nila alam, or hindi sila nag-prepare nun, everything. But I was looking, for example, dito sa Alpha Land, no? It's signed by the President, Mario Oreta, the Treasurer, Josephine Manalo, and the Chairman, Eric Recto, no? And in the next page, it's notarized. So, ibig sabihin that they have to swear and subscribe to it, ma'am, correct?
Yes, that's a very strict requirement of the SEC that the statement of management responsibility must be signed by those three persons.
Okay. And under oath.
Under.
So meaning, aside from the
companies.
administrative penalties that you can impose, no, of course, cancellation of their yung certificate and yung shortening of their corporate life, of you allowed monetary penalties.
Can impose monetary penalties, but if it's a listed company, then it will fall under the Securities Regulation Code, specifically Rule 68. And the penalties there would range from revocation of the registration of the securities and then fines and penalties. If it's an ordinary corporation, we don't normally require a notarized statement of management responsibility, but under Section 141 of the Corporation Code, we can still go after them also for submitting financial statements with material deficiencies or misstatements and also fine them. But the penalties in the Corporation Code is only up to a maximum of 10,000 pesos. That's why in our proposed amendments to the Corporation Code, we are trying very much to have those penalties increased.
Any criminal penalty, ma'am?
With respect to filing of criminal
aside from fines,
complaints,
meaning any jail time?
Yes, with respect to falsification, of course, especially when it's with respect to procuring registration and they submitted fraudulent papers, of course, we will file a criminal complaint.
But only when it's under oath.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's a debate, because some corporations business wants to move towards the fines like the US and less criminal.
More of civil enforcement.
Yes, penalties because of possible harassment or cases in court and losing investors. So, but we will have a opportunity to fully discuss what's best for the Philippines. But my point in that is that this one is under oath, no? And going to Commissioner Henares, ma'am, because under oath, the testimony of I will not ask you for a ruling now. I'll just tell you what happened, and I'll ask you, ma'am, for the general concept of compensation and taxation and compensation. But basically what happened here is that Secretary Ongpin said that hindi ordinaryong empleyado si Mr. Ureta, so binigyan siya ng a number of shares as compensation. Pero sa libro ng kanilang kumpanya, nakalagay ito binili ng kumpanya. No, I'll be more clear, no, but again, I won't ask you directly on this. I'll ask you hypothetical questions, no. So basically, Sime Darby, yung may-ari ng lupa, sold 100% of its shares to Silvertown for 400 million. So pag dinivide mo yung number of shares, it came out to 12,000 per share. Binigyan niya ng 2,031 share ang Noble Care for only 20,310 or 10 pesos per share lang, no? So unang-una doon pa lang hindi undervalued, no, yung binigay na share because it was worth 12,000 per share pero 10,000 per share binenta. Ngayon, ang Noble Care nagbayad pesos. Nagbayad ng 10 pesos per share ang Noble Care. So ito po ang sinabi ni Vice Mayor Mercado, correct me, Vice Mayor, if I'm wrong, na if you look at this comes about 5%. And ito po yung dapat para kay Vice President Binay when he was still mayor, no? Ang testimony ni Mr. Ureta, they paid for the share at par value, kaya nga 10 pesos, no? But Secretary Ongpin said that was not sold to him, or more specifically, sinabi niya, hindi ordinaryong empleyado, compensation niya yan. Part ng compensation package niya yan. So, tinanong ko siya, nagbayad ka ba ng income tax? Sabi niya, hindi, pero nagbayad ako ng capital gains. Bakit capital gains? Because 2 years later, or around 2011, 3 years later, ang nangyari po, Noble Care gave their shares to Alpha Land Development, Inc. In the meantime po, in 2008, Alpha Land also loaned 100 million pesos to Noble Care. So, in 2011, ang Noble Care po, binigay yung 2,031 shares niya sa Alpha Land Inc., kinondone yung 100 million pesos, and then, ang Alpha Land Inc. nag-issue ng shares papuntang Alpha Land Corporation worth 88,000 shares at 88,974,000 shares. Sorry, 88,000 shares. 8.9 million shares. Ay, hindi po. Ito po yung sa ADI papuntang Alpha Land. 88,000 shares, 974 at 1,000 pesos. Ang Alpha Land naman ay nagbigay sa Noble Care ng 8.9 million shares at 10 pesos. Pero at that time, it was 60 pesos sa stock market. Unlisted pa tong shares na to, no? Ang explanation ni Mr. Ongpin at ni Mr. Ureta, kasi sabi niya, total binayaran mo na ako for the deal nung shares nung sa Noble Care nung Silvertown, ipalit ko na lang, ibalik ko sa iyo, bigyan mo ako sa mother. So sabi ko, anong tax ang binayaran mo? Ang binayaran lang daw niya, capital gain. Okay. So ma'am, because you're going to study this and I don't want to put you on the spot and I do not want to say we're the Senate in the BI are making rulings here. You are a commission. You have your own rules. Let me ask you the hypothetical questions. In whatever form, whether cash, property, shares, when someone pays someone something and calls it compensation, what tax is due?
Income tax, sir,
And
or compensation.
income tax or compensation. And more or less, ma'am, how much is that income tax?
I think this one would go to 32% because that's the highest bracket. If you earn
Yes,
money.
after a certain level, it's 32%. No? And if he doesn't declare it as income and doesn't pay the tax, what are the penalties?
First, in this case, there's already fraud. So the surcharge is 50%.
Fraud, ma'am, because hindi dineclare as compensation.
Yeah, failure to include it or file a return for it. So there's fraud of 50. Then it's a penalty of 50%. Then you're required to pay 20% of whatever amount is due every year, no, until you get to pay it.
So I'll not ask you to comment on this because at that time, ang computation ko, so kung 200 million worth ang binigay sa kanya, 50% surcharge, 300 million na yon. Kasi 200 plus 50%, 100. Then kung ilang taon siyang hindi nakabayad, 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 20% of 300 million is 360. Then the next year, ma'am, compounding yon. So 20% of 300 pa rin or 20% of 360 na?
20% of 300.
Of yung base pa rin.
Yeah.
So plus 60 million every year.
Yes.
No, so plus 60 million 09, 010, 011, 012, 013, 014, 015. So 7
140%.
times 60.
140%.
So
420.
420 million. So in my computation, Mr. Oretag owes the government 420 million pesos. But we'll turn that over to you with the facts. No, I just wanted to show this committee that pag nagsasabi ka ng totoo, kahit kano pagbalik-balik na rin yung mga tanong, makakasagot ka. Pero pag nagsisinungaling ka, maiipit ka. So right now, I'm not saying totoo na yung 5% ay kay Vice President. What I'm saying now is after the testimony of both Mr. Oreta and Secretary Ongpin, there are only two choices. Yung 5% na punta kay VP Binay as testified by Mr. Mercado, Vice Mayor Mercado, or totoo yung sinasabi ni Mr. Ongpin na binayaran to kay Mr. Oreta, but then he evaded taxes and he now owes 620 million. So I just wanted this to be an example to the other deals being made that are either anomalous or they can be straight but they don't pay the right taxes. So I apologize, ma'am, that we had to bring the heads of the offices here today, but I think it will send a strong message to the other businesses that pay the right taxes, the government will protect you. But you have anomalous deals or you don't pay the right taxes, malalaman. This happened in 2008 until now. It's so 7 years, pero wala namang prescription period yan, ma'am, di ba?
Because you failed to include it, so there's really no prescriptive period because the period does not start. It started siguro, sir, now when we discovered the fraud. So now the 10 years starts ticking.
Okay, thank you very much for that, ma'am. And unless
can I pursue that subject matter, ma'am? Mr. Ongpin called it carried interest. So have you encountered that term? And then that's part of his compensation. And as I understood it, it is an ongoing arrangement. So not only for the Alphaland Malugay development, but for each and every project that Mr. Oreta can bring to the corporation. He has a carried interest. So how do you understand that term, ma'am? Is that really part of compensation?
Sir, I don't really know what they mean by carried interest. No? But the fact is, there can only be two reasons how you can get your income. No? One is if you're employed, he's employed as president, and so whatever income you get is compensation. The only time it's not compensation is you got the dividend from your shares. So you're a stockholder, then you also got a dividend. Now, if you have a contract with the corporation, then there should be a proper delineation, no? Because the corporation code, I think, is very clear that you cannot deal with the officers cannot deal with the corporation until they disclose their whole interest in the other corporation. But based on what I heard and read, it can only be compensation because if it's dividend, then everyone should have a dividend.
Just on this point, Mr. Chair, I'll just reserve the further questions because Secretary Ongpin is not here and Senator Osmeña thoroughly reviewed the financial documents and have some questions, so I do not want to take over on that. But Ma'am Kim, I didn't realize what the chairman said. Because Because according to Secretary Ongpin, maraming projects pinapasok si Mr. Oreta. And bawat project, ganyan yung compensation. So, maybe when we're here, we'll ask him, but baka sa isang tao lang ma-make up nyo na yung deficit natin sa income tax.
Deficit with hundreds of people.
Well, sa isang project lang, ma'am, 600 million na eh. So, kung may 5 project siya, 3 billion na yan.
Attorney Ponferrada wants to say something. Yes,
If,
Panyero.
I may, actually we prepared a PowerPoint presentation, but to address the points clearly, I agree with the Honorable Commissioner of Internal Revenue that if it were treated and structured as a compensation, that may be the applicable tax rates. But in this case, in the same way that there are many ways of skinning the cat, there are many ways of achieving an objective. The carried interest, which Mr. Ongpin testified to during the last hearing, was implemented in the most tax-efficient and cost-efficient manner we could think of. And that is through Noble Care Management Corporation subscribing to original shares of stock of Silvertown Property Development Corporation. And for that transaction, subscription to an original issuance, the only applicable tax is the documentary stamp tax, which we duly paid. And we complied with all applicable laws because in a subscription, the only applicable law would be we should not issue the share below par value, lest it become watered stock.
Compañero,
Yes, sir.
that would be totally acceptable if the Secretary Ongpin, did not say that it was compensation. He said it was compensation. So you bought it at 10 pesos para mabook nyo sa corporation nyo na binili at 10 pesos at par value, even if it was worth 12,000 at that time. No? But you already have testimony under oath that it was compensation and you did not pay income tax.
If I may respond, Mr. Senator.
Of course, go ahead.
Mr. Senator, I was here and I heard him say indeed compensation, but we have to understand that at their level, that's how they think about it. But when they ask us to implement it, like if they ask me to go to Quiapo, there are many ways of going to Quiapo.
Yes, sir, but let me shortcut that, compañero. No? Tax evasion and tax avoidance are very different. No? So, for example, no, sa estate tax, di ba? Kung mag-estate planning ka, tax avoidance yon. Basta't sundin mo yung batas, di ba? Oh, so, yung tax avoidance, sinuturo sa atin sa law school, pwede yon. Pero yung tax evasion, hindi pwede. So, compensation is compensation. No matter how you structure it, you have to pay the 32% amount. But even assuming, for the sake of argument, you are correct. You bought it at 10 pesos, it was worth 12,000 eh. So you did not pay the donor's tax of 30%.
I may
Go ahead, sir.
I agree, Your Honor, that tax avoidance is legitimate, and that's exactly what happened here. It was not. If I may, I could not divine what was in the mind of Mr. Ongpin at that time, but I would surmise that compensation, when he mentioned it, it was in a loose sense, not in the sense as defined by the National Internal Revenue Code. Because what is clear is that the agreement was a carried interest, and as I can surmise from the discussion earlier, it's really not defined in our laws what a carried interest
Well,
is.
compañero, eto na lang, no? Since you're a lawyer, I assume, kasi Filipino citizen ka, di ba?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Senate, our roads, our hospitals, our school are all paid for taxes. Kung susundin natin yung advice nyo, at lahat na lang kami, pag nagbigay ng sweldo, lahat ng korporasyon nagbigay ng sweldo sa empleyado, ganyan ang gagawin. Walang kikitain na taxes ang gobyerno. E de, paano na ang Pilipino?
Pero yung may sweldo po si Mr. Oretas.
Speak into the mic, sir.
May
Panyero.
sweldo po si Attorney Oretas bilang presidente po ng Altalan.
Papataksan nyo yung sweldo na 200,000, pero yung 200 milyon, gagawan nyo ng paraan na hindi magbayad ng compensation tax.
Kasi hindi po siya binigyan ng shares. Kung bigay po, mag-agree po ako.
That's what Mr. Ongpin said. It was part of his compensation. Even if you undervalue it, if I say that part of my compensation for Mr. Cuervo, because inappraise niya yung house ko, is to give him land, and then binabaan ko yung presyo ng land ko, yung compensation pa rin niya, yung real value ng land ko, yun pa rin.
Pero tama po kung binigyan, pero hindi po binigyan. nag-subscribe po si Noble Care Management Corporation sa original issuance ng
Yes,
shares ng Silvertown. Kaya wala pong donor stock dito kasi hindi naman
Hindi po
binigay.
nag-subscribe. Binentahan po ng Silvertown ang Noble Care
Hindi po binenta
at
po. Subscribe po.
at 10 pesos, di ba?
Hindi po benta po. Hindi po benta po. Subscription po.
Subscription
It
siya,
wasn't
okay.
a sale po. It was a
It was a subscription.
from the previously
Sige.
unissued
But
shares of stock.
Silvertown bought the whole interest of Sime Darby at 400 million pesos.
Hindi po. Alphaland po bought the entire interest of Sime Darby in Silvertown for 400 million pesos.
That's right.
Apo.
So, makikita mo kung paano pinaikot. So, it was really worth 12,000 pesos, tapos pinalabas nyo 10 pesos na lang.
Kung nagbenta po si Alphaland ng shares mula sa binili niya kay Sime Darby, tama po, 12,000. Pero hindi po ganun po ang nangyari.
Well,
Nag-subscribe po
anyway,
si Noble Care. Sa
Anyway, we gave you the opportunity. We also have our opinion. The commissioner is here. They'll study it. But, ma'am,
Commissioner
would
wants
you
to say
like
something, Commissioner Henares.
Sir, nowadays, tax avoidance is being frowned upon. No? If you do something to minimize tax for only that purpose, that is already tax evasion. If you did business and along the way it becomes efficient, then that tax avoidance. But to do it primarily to not pay taxes is tax evasion, no matter what you say it is. Secondly, sir, I think the whole point is how will Noble Care be able to subscribe to those shares if it was not because of a compensation package? I don't think. I mean, at the end of the day, that is part of the negotiation based on what I'm hearing. No? It is part of the negotiation for Mr. Oreta to work for Alphaland. No? So whether Mr. Oreta subscribed or not, that is part of his compensation. And we already came up with a rule that if you allow somebody to have an option to buy that shares at below its book value or fair value, then the difference is actually your income. So if let's say the shares of Silvertown at that time is 400 million for everything, and the book value should be a share is around 12,000, and somebody pays for 10 peso, then there is a recognition that there's an additional. Either it's a donation, the difference, or second, it's a compensation. Now, the thing there is, if this is allowed only to the management, then it will be the company who will pay for the fringe benefit tax, or it will be the recipient who will pay for the difference. So that's just the thing. Whatever you say, it is part of compensation. You just structured it. You already said it's structured. So it is part of compensation. By your own word, you already said it is being structured that way. So you have already admitted that's evading taxes.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that clarification. And I see the logic kasi kung hindi, yan na lang gagawin ng lahat. Paano papasweldohan ng police? Paano pasweldohan ng teachers? No? Having said that, sir, Panyero, I know you're not authorized to decide this, but let me reiterate my challenge to Noble Care and to Mr. Oreta. Madali naman patunayan yan kung sa kanya o hindi. Kasi ang aking impormasyon, within 2 days, yung 100 milyon ay winidraw ng buo. At masusundan kung saan napunta ang pera. But Mr. Oreta refuses to waive his right to bank secrecy even on solely that transaction. I would understand kung bakit ayaw niya on everything. Whatever, kung sa pamilya, sa business niya, sa partners niya, ayaw makita bank account niya. But only on that transaction, the 100 million na pinahiram sa Noble Care. So I ask you to communicate that to him, and I'd like to say that in public. No? So kung sasabihin niya na compensation yan, pag-withdraw niyan, dapat napunta sa kanya. Pero ang balita ko, meron talagang napuntahan.
Attorney Ponferrada, you mentioned earlier that you have a presentation.
Pwede kung tumarin po.
Siguro. So you can stick to your theory, your script. Baka mawala kayo. Sige. PowerPoint? Is it a PowerPoint?
Apo.
How many minutes?
Mabilis lang po at saka madadaanan na rin po yung
Sige po. Are we ready?
Naibigay ko na po kay Atty. Kim.
Are we ready? But in the meantime,
For example, sa PSE, you can prevent insider trading, you can prevent na, di ba sa US parating meron dyan yung parang mga pharma, di ba, na hindi nila i-disclose na yung isa nilang drug na dinidevelop ay defective pala. So invest pa rin pa ng invest yung iba, yung pala malulugi na kumpanya, no? So things like this, no? So but basically it's to promote business and promote people investing, no, in corporations on the positive side, and on the negative side to prevent fraud, no? In a nutshell po, ganun ang purpose nitong lahat. No?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's also very correct. I think in addition, from the PSE side, we also have something called the Capital Markets Integrity Corporation. It's actually funded by the PSE, but it's an independent corporation with independent directors. Their main job is, and we've given them, let's call it high technology and software to basically figure out, perhaps maybe not on a preventive basis, but as close to real time as possible that they can detect.
So having said that, ma'am, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank the three ladies and the gentleman right in front of me, no, the president of the PSE, the chairperson of the SEC, the BIR commissioner, and the COA acting chair. Because I think today, despite Boyscout ang ating pong pinag-uusapan, you're sending a strong message, no, to the corporate world, sa lahat ng maging non-stock, non-profit, maging ordinary corporations, maging GOCCs, diba, that you'll be on top of the situation. And I just have a few questions. On top of the situation, meaning demanding better and better governance, corporate governance, no, and compliance with the law, no. Of course, the Commissioner Kim is on television more than the three of you. Maybe it's the nature of her work, no, and maybe mas maraming nagpapalusot sa kanya kaso sa inyo. But today will be a peculiar case. And let me proceed from there. But Ma'am Kim, I'll go to you. I'll just finish one or two questions sa PSE at saka sa SEC, no? Ma'am, sa SEC po, ma'am, the corporations are required to file a financial statement. Tama po?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And this form, no, with the cover sheet is provided by the Commission.
Yes, the cover sheet, yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, the purpose of this is because they will have investors, they will be dealing with other companies, they have a separate juridical personality. Ibig sabihin, parang tao, although hindi sila tao, meron silang juridical entity nga, di ba, na para silang artificial na tao na will be dealing, no? So, you require all of this for transparency, to prevent fraud, and to give yung kausap nila enough information. So kung may magbebenta sa akin ng kotse at duda ako, ano ba tong korporasyon na to? Fly by night ba to? Peke ba yung ginagawang kotse nito? Pwede ako pumunta sa SEC at pwede kong tignan ang kanilang mga financial sheets and etc. No?
Yes, Mr. Senator. In fact, they don't have to come to the SEC. They can just buy.
Very much linked to both good corporate governance and up-to-date information. And this will include various things like disclosing important, what we call material information, for example, decided by a board of directors within 10 minutes. And all of this information, just to let the committee know, is not only available or has not only been available on our website previously. We also developed a new app and a new website. It's called PSE Edge, so people can actually subscribe directly so that any corporation who's listed, they submit all of this through this particular facility, and the public can actually see real time what they are actually submitting to the PSE.
I'm a witness to that because I have that on my phone. But in a nutshell, ma'am and sir, no, basically on the positive side, these are all done para mapadali ang business, di ba? Because more business, more jobs, more taxes, and it's basically for our economy on the positive side. On the negative side, para walang lokohan, para walang fraud, no? Meaning, the more transparent, the more information.
A prepaid card and access our iView through their computers at home.
Okay. So you made it easier for people to check, no? And
So we have to enhance the system because we acquired that way back in 2005, and due to the number of corporations we have, the server isn't capable anymore.
And President Sicat, I guess the same thing, no? Especially when it's publicly listed, lalo na because the shares are openly sold to anyone in the public who's qualified to buy. So aside from the SEC filings, you also require several other submissions, no? Including, for example, disclosures. No?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Senator. That's absolutely correct. Essentially, as part of our mandate in terms of ensuring that the public investors get to know what's happening with corporations, we have a whole list of disclosure requirements. Some of them are basic reports, from your annual report to your quarterly statements, including requirements that which are